old.
Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where we look to empower and encourage real conversation amongst men everywhere by unpacking topics on self-help, philosophy, and business.
Welcome and happy Friday to another episode of Simple Minds. My name is Travis Hato. I am your host for this glorious day. And today we have three good-looking fellas in the same room as I.
We got guests.
We got guests? No, I'm talking about you, Matt.
Oh,
you are one of those good-looking fellas. So to my left, we have JB Justin Bourne, the smoothest voice in the land.
What's up?
Across me, we got Matt Hannum, Magic Matt Hannum.
Hello, Mr. Travis Hato.
And Conrad Francis.
Conrad Francis.
Kanye Francis.
G'day.
I'm in a repetitive mood today. Anyway, little brief overview on what we're chatting about is the love languages, 5 love languages. It's a book by Paul Chapman. So we'll go through that and a bit of communication. But firstly, my old faithful drink. Probably I've brought this in, I reckon this is the 10th time now. Because it's... Thanks, Conrad. Conrad's taking a selfie of himself. Anyway.
The scary bit is why.
Yes.
And that's because he's what are you doing over there, Conrad?
Taking a test.
You're taking a test for what app?
Love nudge.
Explain to us what love nudge is.
Multitasking at its finest.
Well, we're talking about love languages and they've got a new app called Love Nudge, but we'll come back to that.
Is that... As in love languages, that's the app?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Well, that'll be interesting. Well,
You should have researched it better, Trev.
well, I didn't know they had an app now.
Well, they've got a website too. That's where they got the app from.
Well, yeah, I'll go on the website.
Didn't disclose that.
Anyway, back to the drink. We're up to Single Fin from Gage Roads, brewed in Fremantle, which is very local to us. We like supporting local. So cheers. Good to be back.
Salute.
I missed a few episodes there for a little while.
Watch the cables. Cheers.
Sorry, Conrad.
It's one of your staples, hey?
Absolutely. Love the old Single Fin. All right. Love languages.
I think you just said that. This is one of your...
He wasn't listening.
He was not listening.
Taking the test.
No. See how I just brushed it off, though?
Yeah, you did well. I didn't let him go.
No, he didn't let go. I was just going to... Yeah, he can't concentrate on 2 things at once.
He's got 3 things going on.
Look at him.
He's got his iPad out as well.
I receive a loving note, text, email for no special reason for my loved one. Can we define loved one? Because my dog doesn't write.
You don't have a dog. You wouldn't have a dog. It would be too expensive.
No, I love a dog. I used to have one, a Rottweiler. Yeah, see, that shuts you up.
Used to.
Sick balls.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Okay. Do you ever give love to someone and feel like you get nothing back, Conrad, like your Rottweiler? Everyone communicates in love differently and differently. How do you show love and how do you like to receive love back? Let's unpack love languages. So the concept of the 5 love languages was brought to me by one Conrad Francis, probably... Well, how long ago was it now? Probably 6 or 7 years ago. For you that are long-term Simple Minds listeners, we actually spoke about this briefly in episode 3.
If you're an OG.
Yeah, if you're an original.
OG. Be an OL, wouldn't it? Old listener.
OG, original.
But however, because at that point we were doing 3 topics per episode, we didn't really get to spend much time on it, so we thought we'd revisit it because... I really love this topic. I think it's a fantastic tool in your tool belt to enable you to communicate with people, not only your wife or a loved one, but in a work sense, in a sporting sense, in everyday life. So I think it's a really powerful thing. So the book was it's called The 5 Love Languages, and it's by Paul Chapman, and it was given to me by Conrad Francis, who's sitting across from me. How did you come across it, Conrad?
Oh, far out, mate. I think it would have been at a time where... Who would have given it to me? I couldn't even tell you who gave it to me, which is unfortunate. Yeah. But yeah, it was an interesting thing. It came to me at a time which I then got to use some of the principles fairly quickly, and I got some great value in a business sense, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah. The the content, it's a very simple book. It takes 4 hours to read on audio. If you are an audio listener, basically the concept of it is that everyone communicates in different love languages. So if you think that you have a love bucket, and obviously you're the most loved when that love bucket is completely full. But the way you show and like to receive love is generally different from other people. So they categorize them into 5 different love languages. So there is quality time. So basically someone just needs to spend some time with you. Acts of service. You like things being done for yourself. Words of affirmation. You like affirmation. You like to be told that you're good, etc. That sort of stuff.
Using words to build up the other person.
Yep.
Gifts.
Giving gifts.
Yep.
Well, you broke my flow there. Giving gifts. And the last one is touch. So not in a sexual way, touch.
Can be.
It can be with your loved one, but however, just kind of touch in general as well.
Holding hands.
So yeah, they're the 5 categories of love languages. And the concept is that you have a primary and a secondary love language. So personally, my primary is quality time and my secondary is touch. So what's really important is that like when you, the primary and the secondary are the ones that really fill your love bucket up. However, but if you're feeling really, really loved, then most of them or all of them will top you up. But if you're feeling really like shit and unloved, then generally, like if I'm quality time, then giving me a gift isn't going to do shit for me. So it generally will only fill my love bucket up when I'm, near empty, will be quality time. So the concept is that, say, if my wife, Ashby, when we first got together, she was mainly affirmation and touch. And now she's moved more into acts of service and touch. Primary is touch and the secondary is more acts of service. And when we started dating, because mine is quality time, she would, I would feel like I'm giving her love by just spending time with her. And I'm like, whoa, like I'm giving you my love. And that's the way I knew how to give love was, what I value my time, quite highly. And if I want to show you that I love you, I'm going to give you my time. And there was disconnect there because at the end of the day, all I really needed, because her love language is affirmation, she didn't really connect with the quality time. She really just needed, hello, darling, you look beautiful. So that's the way she wanted to receive love. And by me going, well, quality time is my love language, I was giving it to her in the way that I knew that I wanted it. So then there's that disconnect and you don't feel that, strong love connection because you're communicating to each other in different languages. Probably about a year and a half in, actually, when we were dating, I read the book. I didn't tell her that I read it, and I did a little bit of an experiment. Let's put it that way. So for the first month, I figured out the one thing about figuring out your love language. You can do the test on the 5 love languages website. And also they've got a fantastic app by the sounds of it, Conrad.
Love Nudge,
which we haven't really checked out, but we will.
I'm nudging as you speak, Trev.
So you can do a simple 15-minute, that's so wrong on so many levels. You can do a simple 15-minute test to figure out your love language. However, if you haven't done that and you're trying to figure out your loved one's love language, generally most people portray their love languages on them. So before I had done my love language, I would have told you that Ashby is quality time because that is actually what I value. And I would, scream black and blue that no, she loves quality time, but ultimately it's not. So you really have to remove yourself from your own sort of love communication language and
your
understand.
Projection.
Yeah, your projection. beautiful way to put it. Thank you, Conrad. To find out someone else's love language. So I figured out Ashby's love language. It was affirmation and touch. So I really focused on the affirmation side of it. And for 2, 3, 4 weeks, I just affirmed her as much as I could without her even knowing. And it was quite incredible because, obviously I filled her love bucket up till it was overflowing, and she was extremely feeling loved. And in result,
she married you.
Yeah, fuck. Silly.
And then he stopped.
And now we're divorced. No. But jeez, broke me flow again. Hang on. No, yeah, what was I talking about?
I don't know. This is the Travis Haydo show.
You got me.
Your experiment.
Yeah, my experiment.
Her bucket was flowing.
Yeah, so her bucket was overflowing.
Lots of nudge.
Lots of nudge. And in result, that actually filled up my love language, my love bucket, because unknowingly, she actually gave me all 5 of the love languages back because she was so full of love that it enabled her to just give selflessly, and it would fill my bucket up. So it was quite an amazing experiment because it was all one way. Like, she had no idea I was doing it, and she filled my love bucket up, and by also obviously giving to give rather than to receive, it certainly filled my love bucket up. Right, so we didn't need love nudge. It was incredible 3 weeks of love, passion, sex. Just joking, Conrad. But no, that's
clearly you'll get more if you use the app.
Yeah. But anyway, so the next 3 weeks, I was like, I wonder if this book is full of shit. So the next 3 weeks, I went away and I gave her no affirmation whatsoever and no touch.
This guy's freaking, he's a maniac.
Yeah. And
fill it up and take it away.
Yeah.
3 weeks. You got away with that for 3 weeks.
I don't think it lasted even that long, to be honest. But it's incredible how quickly Ashby's love bucket emptied, and then
That's actually quite psychopathic. Do you understand what you were doing?
I wanted to, because obviously if she knew about it, then it would be warped. So I wanted to figure out and see if it actually worked for me. And straight away cracks started to appear. We started to fight more. Little things like that. It was quite unreal looking at it. And then obviously I just flicked the switch again and started affirming her. And within 2 or 3 days, it's quite incredible. It's quite an incredible tool that you can use to just give to people and especially your loved ones. Like it's pretty incredible. So that was kind of my story with Love Language podcast done. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for that. You might want to find us and like us and comment.
At what point
we have a new show starting to get back into this one's called Simple Minds Podcast.
So that was the warm-up. So at what point did you tell her, and did she give you a big slap? How did this go down?
Yeah, well,
so hang on, you were deliberately doing that to me?
Yeah. No,
Manipulation.
Well, firstly, I didn't tell her that I did it directly straight away. I said that I read this really interesting book and this is the concept of it. And she was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And
Because you've been a dick for the last few weeks.
Yeah. And then I kind of tweaked it in that I'd been doing a bit of an experiment. So and she was fine. That's okay. I'd make sure her love bucket was extremely full prior. But the lesson that I learnt from it is that it's incredible that people speak in different communication levels and different types of communication. And so I actually I use it now in everyday life, like for work. My employees or the people I work with, like I know their love language, and I understand that if I'm away for a couple of days, my warehouse manager Daryl, I need to go and just spend a bit of quality time with him, and just sort of sit next to him for 15 minutes, ask him how his day's going, what he's doing.
Was that for him or for you? I would have thought Daryl was more an affirmations bloke.
No, he's quality time. All you need to do is just sit next to him and make sure he feels loved that way. And I can see his productivity, his vibe, his energy, picks up straight away. So it's Yeah, it's interesting how it's not just, if you're single, it's not just your wife or girlfriend or anything like that. It can apply to everyday life.
Oh yeah, and that's the key. I think it applies to everywhere, but more importantly, the self-awareness piece, because when you know what fills your bucket, so to speak, it becomes your responsibility then to take care of yourself, i.e. provide for yourself or at least acknowledge what you need so that people around you aren't guessing. I think that's the most important piece, the tool that allows you to become more self-aware.
Yeah, absolutely. So like if I'm ever feeling like shit, I make the time and go spend it with Ashby because I know that will fill my love bucket up. So it's that awareness of understanding what you need and going to get it. What about you guys? What love language are you, JB?
I'm affirmation and touch.
Yep.
And I came across this book similar by Kanye a couple of years ago now, and it was super important at the time. What was super fascinating for me is after doing the exercises was that a good way to you can do the tests as you mentioned, but analyzing in moments of, particularly with your spouse or partner, if you're in a bit of conflict, your first instant response is actually coming from your love bucket because that's what you expect to receive. So, for example, if my wife V was like shitty at me back in the day, like I'd be giving her either affirmation or touch, and like she just wouldn't want a bar of it. So my wife's love language is quality time and acts of service, and so like coming back to the projection piece, whatever you're kind of trying to provide a lot of is generally a good reflection of what your core love languages are. And it was super powerful for my wife and I to do this book and read it together because it really shifted our understanding of each other a hell of a lot more because, when you're running a business, particularly in the early days, you don't have a lot of time. And so my wife was always like, oh, you're never around. I want more time. And then I'm like, I'm giving time. Like, what does that mean? And so, and then again, even with quality time, it's understanding what that definition is for someone else.
Yeah, that's the important part.
No matter whatever these love languages are, is understanding what does quality time mean, like to you, Trav? What does it mean to V? What does it mean to Daryl? Because if it means sitting by him asking how he's going, it's very different to, because I was like, I'm giving you so much time. Like, what do you? No, it's not my version of quality time. And when we kind of define that, it changed the game. So
it's always important to understand the definitions.
Yeah, I think it's really important and a very powerful tool. What about you, Matt? Your
acts of service, and obviously
that's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
probably somewhat obvious. And I've been definitely guilty of that. I've not guilty of that, but like Sasha's is affirmation, and I'm great at racing off and doing things and providing in that way and doing lots of different acts of service, and not so fantastic at just saying things and providing affirmation. So it's it's been really interesting to understand that I struggle with, like, not just Tash but with my team at work and other people. Affirmation's not something that I guess do easily, and I've had to be very mindful because I think a lot of people have affirmation as either a primary or a secondary, and for me, I'm very different. I don't really enjoy let's say an apology as such. I like people to go and fix a problem that's come up if they've because I want them to go and do that. That's how I approach things. So acts of service, and obviously it's pretty obvious. So I'll let. Has anyone else got a story of me then?
Well, Conrad, you have.
Can I just
Yeah.
correct something? The author's not Paul Chapman.
Yeah, it isn't it?
It's Gary Chapman.
Oh, it's Gary Chapman. You know what?
No, his middle name's Paul.
I always do that.
I'm thinking when you said that, I think this is frying my brain already.
Gary Chapman.
That's why I went and Googled the app.
Who's Paul Chapman?
Oh, fuck, I don't know. I think I did this last time as well. I know. It's just...
I went to school with the Paul Chapman, but he didn't write for love languages.
I didn't look it up. I just did it out of my head. So anyway, Conrad, you have a sizable team. Is it something that you actually use within a work sense or in a business sense?
I'm a Nazi with it, mate. Like, and I I do it with everybody.
You're a Nazi
I
with
am.
love
I
language.
love languages, disc profiling. I do whatever I can to understand the architecture of the human being. And sometimes people don't like it, but I don't care. I need to know how I can work with that person. So I use it in basketball teams. I use it in my work situations. I use it with people I'm meeting, just so I can make sure that there's a value exchange going.
Before we have this coffee, I need you to take this love language.
No, well, you can pretty much. I just ask questions. I say, how do you show love? How do you acknowledge your team? So when you can ask that question and you give them the parameters of what they can answer you with, it's pretty easy to pick up. And then pretty much you're giving value in that space, which means, by the end of it, you say, well, did you get value catching up with me today? You know the answer's going to be. So you're just setting it up better. But it's fun. I love it. Because it's probably been one of the biggest lessons I've learned, which probably shows why I explained it to you guys, particularly with your partners and probably more so from your businesses when you start building your teams, because it's we're a very needy society at the moment. The teams we're building on every facet, obviously they're drawing out of you a lot. So if you can pay them in ways that are more valuable than what money shows up, you'll pretty much get them to do anything for you.
Well, you can influence them in such a positive way by just tapping into it. Like an example, so Conrad and I have been involved in basketball for a long time, and 2 years ago, we had a fella that we played with, and it wasn't a problem in the team. He was just a bit chirpy, and I figured out his love language, and it was just acts of service, because we'd be sitting there at the end of the training, and he'd go, "I'll go home, and my wife hasn't even made me dinner for the night." And so just a few things like that I kind of clued onto. So, after that, I just started doing a few things for him. He's a gift. He loves gifts as well. So, I'd kind of get him something, or, and his whole psyche and mentality within the team, he became less of an enigma or a black hole, and became more a person that started empowering people and propping up our team and being a positive energy by simple little things, by, influencing him in that way, by understanding the way he just wanted some love, from his teammates, from the coach, from that sort of stuff. And it turned, I feel like it turned out.
Who are you talking about?
DT.
Oh, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, so,
Did you tell him what you're doing?
No.
No.
So I probably should have, knowing.
And then he
knowing all
stopped for a couple of weeks.
No, but it's funny because that's a really interesting piece, right? Do you or do you not tell people? I guess why would you tell people? And if you want to tell them because it's going to serve them, great, no problems. I'm a bit of a prick sometimes. I just want to tell them because I know how to manipulate them, and that's how I tell people sometimes.
But it's not about manipulation.
No, but it can be.
It's about it's not.
It can be.
Yeah, but
if it's not used properly, it can be. Without a doubt, any power to influence can be used to manipulate.
You just need to come from a place of love.
For sure.
And I think that's the key with this one. But yeah, just as an example, I think you can use it in every situation. And that was a situation that I'm not a leader within the basketball team, or a so-called captain or leader, but I think everyone's a leader in their form. However, that's a way that I could influence the team. And by using that tool, I enabled a more positive energy within our group. So, I don't want people just to look at it as I need to only use it with my loved one. You can use it with your team.
Everywhere.
You can literally use it everywhere.
But you've got to understand it for you first, right? Anything you do from a self-improvement, self-awareness perspective, you've got to be doing it for yourself first. And you've got to be able to extract the value for yourself first. Because if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to use it with anyone around you to the best of their ability. I don't know. Some of this stuff also, with some people that I've got a lot of people that are affirmation people around me at the moment. Well, at the moment, most of my life, and I've put it down to the fact that as a kid growing up, I probably did seek affirmation a hell of a lot, but managed to probably circumvent that because I never really felt like I got it. So I obviously went the other path. And so in saying that, you can probably evolve, but I don't know whether you can evolve easily the older you get, because obviously your behavioural habits get caught up.
Well, that's my next thing as well. I know Conrad and I, you and I are very similar with this. We don't like giving affirmation. We found it very hard to give affirmation. I found that a lot of people in my life were put there or, propped up to really teach me about affirmation.
100%.
And it's only in the last 18 months that I've actually grasped understanding how to give affirmation, that those sort of issues have subsided to a certain extent. Now, Matt, you're grinning at me like you've had the same thing. Obviously, that's something close to home with you.
Yeah, 100%. I've definitely had very similar, and probably even to a similar time frame. The last sort of 12 or 18 months, even I've been just better at it. Like I would consciously get to a point. I don't know what's going on in this room. We're lucky this is not on video.
They call it affirmation and touch.
That's not affirmation. It's something between affirmation and touch.
Our love languages are both touch.
Yeah,
we're just
right.
touching each other.
It's just a little hug in the corner. But no worries.
You jelly.
Oh, absolutely. I'm on the wrong side of the table.
That's the other book, Paul Chapman's book. You're jelly.
Gary Chapman.
I'm curious if you, because I recall, not really that I can think of specific situations, but I can recall many sort of situations where I almost knew, you know what, now would be a good time, or there is something you could affirm, and almost just choose not to. And I'm curious to see if it's come across the same way for you. Not that you deliberately did something against that person, but you sort of knew you could have said something at that time, and you just sort of continue on and don't sort of communicate what you thought.
For me, I kind of blanketed all affirmation as bad for a long time, and then eventually it propped up in my life so much that I was like, shit, this is obviously something that I need to learn here, because
You're getting it in quadraphonic sound, mate.
yeah, I'm copying it from about 15 different angles here. So the way I sort of processed it was that when I started giving affirmation, I would get really frustrated at giving affirmation that was just band-aiding someone's issue, or that they just need affirmation to make themselves feel better for half an hour and off they go. So I really started to gain the awareness, like why I was giving the affirmation to that person. So even now, if I feel like I'm just giving them affirmation to band-aid what they need, then I won't give it. However, I'm much more able to give affirmation to people, not for the sake of just making them feel good, but actually because I actually genuinely want to give it now. So I went through that because I never wanted to band-aid the affirmation never wanted to just band-aid someone's affirmation. I wrote off everyone else that I was supposed to be giving affirmation to. So now I really sort of sit on it, reflect with it, and look at it and go, well, do I need to give affirmation to this person? Yes. No, I'm just band-aiding there.
I think it's really important to understand it at its essence, like you've just gone through, Trav. I'm still pretty terrible at it, to tell you the truth.
Yes, you are. No.
I am.
That wasn't affirmation.
I am. No, self-acknowledge. It's one of my toughest parts of my my self-learning journey is knowing when and how and what to acknowledge in other people. And it's no excuse. There's no excuse for it. It's just, it's one of the things I've just struggled with.
Well, I think you hit the head on the nail there. Sorry, because you
the head on the nail or nail on the head.
Fuck, nail on the head.
Is that Paul Chapman's book?
Hit the head on the nail.
But
7 ways
to nail your head.
Well, anyway, yes, all the affirmation was coming from external, but really it was internal. So same with me, like the self acknowledgement is.
It's fucking because that's exactly right. The journey to heal yourself, to allow yourself to affirm others genuinely, is a fucking tough one, because it brings up all the shit that you've had to deal with to learn that lesson. Like any self-awareness journey, and God willing, you dig deep enough and you'll figure out why it's hard. But it's it is what it is, and it shows up a lot of shit in me that I've had to deal with, and I am working through. I mean, that's what self-awareness is, and what it presents you with is an opportunity to learn about yourself. And you've got to welcome that, because if you're going to show up in the right way for other people, you've got to deal with your shit.
Absolutely. JB, did you?
I think that kind of answers it, because I struggled with giving affirmation as well. It's clearly around the
Fuck, we're terrible. How many people do we influence on a daily
I know,
basis?
right? And my team is like a team of affirmers. Like they need a lot of it. And the irony is I need a lot of it too. And so
But you need to give it to yourself first, don't you?
that's you kind of answered the question, which just then, which was like, why do we find it to struggle? And it's that self journey piece. And I guess similar, like all of us around the table, the last 12, 18 months, and particularly the last 3 or 4 months, even tighter time frame, coming to understand myself even better and getting a few steps closer to real genuine self-acceptance and self-love and knowing what that is really liberating, and then allows you to give a lot more and reduce judgments and all these type of things. And because I had the similar issue, particularly when building my business for the first few years, knowing when and not, kind of what you acknowledged, Trav, knowing when and not to give affirmation, because I felt like we were always under the bar as a team and we weren't hitting it. So it's like, why should I be acknowledging under the bar? But, come now, I think you can go about a very different approach and you can find genuine areas.
How's your dad going, by the way?
Sorry. That's good.
Again, that's just speaking for myself.
Yeah. So you interrupt my flow. But
Yeah,
common occurrence today too around the table. So, but coming to understand that now, like the last 3 or 4 months, we've been trying to celebrate the small wins a little bit more as a team, acknowledge like the little wins, and be a bit more genuine around. Even if it's small, it's still important.
Yeah.
And I think you underestimate the power of just like the little kind of like, hey, that one little thing, which seems insignificant to the grand picture, but you acknowledge someone for that and affirm them for that, that can go a long way for that individual, particularly if their love bucket's pretty dry and pretty empty.
Well, you're dealing with a very diminished sense of resilience in the society en masse anyway. So love languages is a tool to use to help build resilience in people. I mean, obviously too much can also create the problem, which is why you want to have the two-way conversation around love languages, not just the one-way conversation around love languages or one-way influencing. Because once people start to understand how you're acknowledging them or how they show up, they've got the opportunity then to go and light their own fire too. Okay, and that's an impact that that ripple effect. So so DT Trav, it's a conversation because it'll serve him. I mean, and he needs to understand that for his for whatever he grows on to become. And it's really important that that's happened.
And I think going back to even your experiment, Trav, I mean, it was obviously genuine the 3 weeks that you were doing it, because if it's not going to be received. Because humans are pretty powerful and they'll sense the bullshit if you're just playing with it and it's not genuine too. And particularly from the
eventually.
Eventually. In all areas, the acts of the service, the gifts, so yeah.
I think it's very interesting. In terms of communication forms, like, is there any other forms of communication that you guys value very highly? Like personally, body language is one that I clue onto a lot with my team, with Ashby, with people walking down the street. I feel like body language is something that you personally can control. The way you communicate with people without even actually saying anything. And I think it's very powerful to, sit in a room with someone and read their body language and understand what they're trying to communicate in that point, and without even hearing something come out of their mouth. Like it's another tool. Does anyone have any examples of any other communication that they hone in on or try to use or?
I don't. I mean, I'm terrible with body language. I say I'm terrible. I'm not terrible, but it's not something I spend a lot of time on. So it's not. I can perceive. I can overlay some level of observation, but I'm not. As good as some of the others are when it comes to body language stuff.
Well, personally, when so I do a fair few headshots, photographic headshots, and generally you have 5 or 10 minutes with a person. And holy crap, you can tell a lot about a person in 5 or 10 minutes when they're uncomfortable. And generally, in front of a camera with lights and a backdrop and stuff, most people are pretty uncomfortable. So body language is one huge thing that I I clue in on, and I've learnt a lot from that. And obviously my job in that 10 minutes is to make them feel comfortable and capture a nice image of them, of their face. And because if you look at a photo, you can understand if they're tense or if they're tight, if they don't want to be there, like their eyes are different, their jaw is tight, so it's my job to sort of break them down as such and
do you give affirmation?
Get them.
Oh, he's got some shit jokes too, mate. Seriously.
Hey, if I need, if that's what they need, I do to get a good photo for sure. So that's one reason body language is really heightened on my radar, because I use it in a sense of understanding what people are feeling in that time. When people put their fingers together, so like interlock them together, that's actually a sensory thing, because people want to feel more of their own skin. That means they're really, really uncomfortable. It's
the same when they cross their arms.
Yeah. So, because if they're trying to feel more skin, it's a sensory thing. So, little things like that are really, really interesting, I think, because if they're doing it, without knowing, I know that I'm making them feel uncomfortable. So how do I talk to them? And generally, personally, I just get them to talk about their passion. That's the generally easiest thing to get someone to feel comfortable. And you find that their body language instantly changes. So, it's just another form of communication that I really like to use. No one else has any other?
Yeah, it's something that I've been quite aware of just of late, like literally only the last month, particularly around body language and tone. Tone has been something I've been trying to work with. I noticed in the early days of running a business, my tone came across, which actually communicates what you're really thinking, even though you're saying something different, which was communicating of like what the fuck are you doing? But I was trying to put it in a polite way, verbally, word for word, but was clearly being communicated received a different way through tone. And then body language, I've had some big conversations over the last month, and just trying to be a little bit more aware of how I'm sitting in a meeting, particularly with clients and other people, just like how my general kind of posture and chest and those type of things are positioned. And I've caught myself even kind of scratching behind my ear or touching my ear or something like that here or there when I'm like, oh, I'm doing that right now. I guess that's showing off I'm nervous or anxious or whatever, and just having a little bit of awareness lately. It's not something that's super conscious. It's really front of my mind right now, but they're two things, body language of just being slightly aware. Because there's even this, I'm not sure of the stat, but something about that by standing in a bit more of a power pose or putting your chest up, shoulders back can increase your testosterone by up to 20%. And so and not only that, in meetings and in creating a presence, it can be quite powerful, particularly if you're leading the meeting or you need to be a key influencer in that meeting. So it's something I've been kind of conscious about and something I'm continuing to improve upon.
Well, it's like handshakes. You can tell a lot about a person in a handshake. If a person comes in with their hand and their palm is down and back of their hand is up, it's generally a power thing. They want to overpower you to handshake you. But if they're, straight up and down, nice firm handshake, there's a lot you can tell in a person if they're floppy. I hate an old floppy handshake.
I just keep my hands in my pockets.
So. The one on the weekend, it still comes to mind. I was just like, ugh. And then I was it was twice, because it was when we said hello and then goodbye, and I was like,
So
yeah, exactly. So your interpretation of that person is very different,
just
isn't it?
want to bring it back to love languages before we move too much further off topic.
Are you talking about nudge again?
No, I just wanted to go through the website 5, the numeral 5, lovelanguages.com is actually quite a great reference place to start if you're looking to get access to podcasts of the book by Gary Chapman and some great blog material on there. But he also talks about who it's really applicable to. Now, we've talked about business and personal life. So he's obviously talked about couples. So he's got his love languages for couples. Singles, which he's got a singles edition out. One specifically for men, which obviously is an interesting one, which I wouldn't mind actually getting my hands on, actually.
And one for children as well.
Yeah, so he's got military, the military edition, children and teens. So I think there's a few groups of people there that he specifically has written this for. And if you fit any one of those, I'm not saying you can't adapt it to other groups, but obviously he specifically wrote it for those 5 groups. It's actually interesting to have a look at, particularly if you've got children, teenagers. Having a teenage daughter myself, that I'm going to go back and reread that, see if there's anything I missed, because there's clearly a ton I have missed.
I'm interested in reading the
children's one?
The children's one to see how different it is from the adults one. But yeah, to recap, you've got quality time, gifts, service, touch, and affirmation. I think it's a really powerful tool to be able to use and hone in on. Remember, don't portray your love language onto the other person. Actually, remove yourself and understand what they need and their definition of it. And you can influence people and give love with an abundance. I think that's what I really love about it. Like you can give love and give a lot of energy very precisely without not wasting it or unknowing it. Just reaffirming that the book is Gary Chapman,
Dr. Gary Chapman,
Gary Chapman,
handsome devil too.
So, but yeah. Anyone else got any other points? Otherwise, before we wrap up, no.
Go
Perfect.
get go check it out. I would recommend it too. So I'm glad you brought it up, Trav. And I think one of the reasons we did bring it up is that it was really well received by you listeners. So so obviously some people have got a lot out of it, and if you haven't, it's a small investment to go and just check it out on the website.
Yep. Thank you, and please remember to review us, share us, hit us up. It's always nice to
tell us what your love language is.
Yeah.
So we can love you that same way.
That's sexy. That's nice. All right. Thank you for now, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.